Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to talk about the true horsepower numbers on the second generation Dodge Viper. Yes, not only the horsepower, but the torque. You know, how do you piss off the mass majority that love cars is when you quiz them. And I did a quiz on my Instagram page, and I tell you, some people call me an idiot, call me a moron. You know, yeah, some of those could be correct, right? You know, yeah, I'm not an Einstein. You know, I've just represented professional athletes, negotiated over 100 contracts. But yeah, you're right, I can't read a contract, I can't read, and I'm pretty much a moron. You know, you guys are correct, you know. But besides that point, I did put this quiz out there. I did put four answers, that's a possibility. First one is the 400 horsepower, 465 pounds of torque. The second one was 415, 465. The third one was 450, 490, and the final one being 490, 500. Now go ahead, if you didn't vote on my Instagram, you tell me which one you think it is for the second generation. If you guessed 450 horsepower, 490 foot-pounds of torque, you are just like the 97% of the people that voted in my quiz. Guys, that was all wrong. Let me tell you, what does the Dodge Viper have in common with the Skyline GTR from Nissan? What does it have with the Mustang Boss 429? What about the Pontiac GTO, the Judge? Or the Ferrari F40? What do they have? Yes, they're all iconic cars, but what was the one thing about all four of those cars that the Viper has in common? Let's also add the Corvette L88 to the mix. If that doesn't give you even more of a clue, then I'll just go ahead and tell you, because I know you ain't gonna buy a clue. It is the fact that the Dodge Viper truly was advertised to have less horsepower than it really had. Just like those cars, all those cars I just named had mandates, they had different things to say that the cars were actually lower horsepower, lower torque than what they truly had. In Japan, they said they knew that car was faster, but by Japan's federal mandates, they had to say it was under 300 horsepower. Now the F40 is truly projected to have over 500 horsepower. If you guys watch Doug DeMuro, which, you know, I'm not a big Doug fan because I think Doug basically took the opportunity to own the Dodge Viper and to really experience it, and basically bashed it every which way he could because it wasn't the newest and greatest thing, right? He loved the Gen 5, but bashed the Gen 2 as if it was some, you know, kit car that, you know, was a piece of junk. And that's the one thing I hate about Doug's videos, especially when he does his final Doug score on the Viper. He would give another car that was much slower, both performance-wise, 0-60, quarter mile time, top end speed, gives it a higher acceleration speed for these other cars, and give the Viper a lower one, which makes absolutely no sense. You know, if you're going to give a score, Doug, you kind of got to make sure it's kind of equal across the board, right? If a car goes 0-60 in 4.0 seconds, if your score is, that's a 9, then that would be a 9, whether it's a Dodge Viper or if it's a Lamborghini Countach or a Lamborghini Diablo. It doesn't matter which one. It's Murcielago, you can name it. It should be the same across the board. But unfortunately with Doug's scores, it does depend on whether or not he likes the car or not. So the Viper always gets a negative score in performance category when it was one of the fastest cars of the 90s. And that was my big beef when you talk about the Doug score, is it wasn't across the board equal, right? So with that being said, the Viper was one of the fastest cars of the 90s. If you ever Google it, you can actually see all the different data The Viper indeed was one of the fastest production cars made in the 1990s. Doug did a great video though, I will give it to him. He did a video where the Viper did do a dyno as an older 96, so it was over 20 years of age at this point. It had some miles on there, so it wasn't fresh, and it still had much higher numbers than the 450, 490 foot-pounds of torque. And that showed, and it should have showed the Viper community, wow, the Viper actually had more horsepower than what I really believed. Well, it doesn't take an Einstein to really start putting things together and realizing, is this really true? Well, I even did one up for you guys. I went to the Connors plant. I was part of the final farewell of the Viper. Got to meet Ralph, got to meet a lot of the employees at Dodge. Had an opportunity to walk the facility and take pictures and come across this right here. Not only facts about Connors plant, but the facts on the Dodge Viper. The second generation Dodge Viper was confirmed to have 490 foot-pounds. I'm sorry, I keep saying that because it's so common, that's what we read. It did have 490 horsepower, 500 foot-pounds of torque. The second generation was a screamer. When you talk about performance, this car had it. And a little unknown fact that a lot of people don't realize, that the second generation Dodge Viper actually had the fastest slalom of all the generations, 73.6 miles per hour. Who knew that the second generation had that kind of ability? Now guys, the one thing I will knock on the second generation is, yes, the interior, but the interior though is truly functional. And if you like just functional, if you just like that regular feel of a car, then you can deal with the Gen 2 interior. But it was really one of those things that it was a purpose-built car for the streets. It was basically a race car that was street legal. So while Ferrari and all these other companies did the exact same thing Dodge did, well, everyone wants to dispute it. They want to say, no, the Viper only had 450 horse, 490 foot-pounds of torque. But when you show them the data, when you show them the information that's at the facility that made the Dodge Viper, I can't tell you whether it's federal mandates or insurance reasons, but I can tell you that the Viper was a lot faster than what we thought. And if you really use your brains and get out of this whole Fox News, CNN, conspiracy aspects, you would kind of open your eyes and see, you know what? The second generation and the third generation wasn't that far apart when it came to performance. Now the second generation Dodge Viper RT10 was able to do the 0-60 in 3.9. The Gen 3 was in 3.8. Also, many owners were able to get their second generation under 12 seconds in a quarter mile. But let's just say you use the 12.1 at 120 miles per hour. Guys, the Dodge Viper was a very fast car and it had a lot of power. So you kind of compare that with the Gen 3, you kind of see the Gen 3 and Gen 2 Vipers, as far as performance, they were right there together. And guys, that's where I'm going to leave this. If you have any questions, anything at all, definitely let me know in the comment section below. I enjoyed going to the plant. I wish each and every one of you would have had that opportunity, because you would have realized how special the Dodge Viper truly was. An American-made supercar built in the United States. Guys, thanks for watching this video as always. God bless and take care.